Welcome to the Secret Cellar Podcast, Green Room podcast normally, but it's gotten a little bit too cold in there, so we've moved things downstairs into the showroom. My guest today is the Iceland king of comedy, Ari Eldjárn. How you doing, Ari?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. It must be kind of nice. The Christmas season is over.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was quite busy.
Yeah.
One of the shows that I had planned for before New Year's, we had to postpone it because of the yellow alert from the meteorological office.
Yeah. Where was it? Was it in a different place?
Yeah, it was supposed to be in the east, this performance in Egilsstaðir.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a New Year's show there tomorrow on the 11th of January. So there's like a couple of jokes that need to be updated.
Yeah.
Because they are referring to a New Year's celebration that has already taken place.
Yeah. And the New Year has had a lot of new interesting things happen already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I got to write some new bits. Mountaineers of Iceland.
Mountaineers of Iceland. That's a great bit.
Yeah.
That's a funny thing, because I guess Iceland has always been this place where it wasn't really ready for all the people that came to it. And
Yeah.
this is a great example of just going out and almost killing a bunch of people.
Yeah, just get those people out there and do the thing and get the money and it'll be fine. The weather will be fine.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, you can look it up. They took Mountaineers of Iceland took a group of people. How many people? 49.
Yeah, probably.
A big group of people out during a warning, like a weather alert, and they got stranded and had to be rescued by the Icelandic rescue team
On top of a glacier.
on top of a glacier.
Like a skidoo thing.
Yeah, and they got buried up to their necks in snow, and the snow insulated them so they didn't freeze to death, and they were able to be rescued.
Yeah, it's
And now they're planning to sue.
pretty amazing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this has happened before, apparently.
Yeah,
3 years ago.
They've had this a few times where they've been like, well, let's risk it.
Yeah.
And none of these people are expert mountaineers. Like, even though the name is Mountaineers of Iceland, the guests on there are just, middle-aged tourists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the couple that this happened to like 3 years ago, they were from Australia.
Yeah.
So like they couldn't have come from further away.
Yeah. And they've never seen snow before, so they're like,
You
this
probably
can't,
not
this can't be
spent
that
much
bad.
time on a glacier. They said like, well, we just assumed that nobody was going to come pick us up after 3 hours because if you get lost in Australia, that's it. There's nobody coming to rescue you. It's so big.
Yeah, you'll be eaten eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the Christmas season, I was just, I met Dory at the wine place. What's that called? Tio Soper?
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, it's Christmas again. Time for Ari to start shoveling money. How is it like, that's something that's kind of interesting, because what we talk about with a lot of the comedians here is about, trying the scene in Iceland, having this comedy club in English. But you kind of started doing comedy when there was nothing.
Yeah, well, when me and the guys
Yeah.
in Mid-Ísland, when we did it for the first time 10 years ago, there had always been some stand-up that had come and gone. And there was for years a competition called The Funniest Person in Iceland.
Yeah.
And our friend Þórhallur won it in
2007.
Yeah. and he was the incumbent champion for like 5 years because it didn't run again for like 5 years.
Yeah. And it's still his credit that he says before he goes on stage.
Yeah, in 2007. It's a very good touch. Just throw
awesome.
that in there.
Yeah.
All of my material is pre-bank crisis. And
Isn't cocaine wonderful?
isn't economic growth eternal?
Oh, how many TVs do I have? I can't even count them.
And there are most of them flat screens. Most of them? Yeah, this is very old.
It's old material.
But yeah, I remember like the first stand-up that I heard of in Iceland was Radiusbræður. Steinn Ármann and Davíð Þór. They had a sketch show on TV and they were massive.
Yeah.
They had like a double act kind of thing.
Okay.
The first stand-up I saw was Jón Gnarr.
Yeah.
And that was 22 years ago almost. That was in 98.
Yeah.
And he was famous from doing sketch as well on TV and had been on radio. But yeah, that was the first sort of real stand. And that was a big scene. That whole scene around that contest, Pétur Jóhann came from that.
Yeah.
And other people were there, Bryndís Ásmunds and Sveinn Warrior. So that was like the first wave of stand-up that I really noticed when I was like a teenager.
Right.
And then this competition ran for years. And then it had probably been dormant for, a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that was like our window.
Yeah. To
when
come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were like, maybe people are going to like it.
But even since I met you the first time, because I moved here in 2015, comedy has changed. Like the scene in comedy has changed. It's more international all the time.
All of this has just like grown so much.
Yeah, just this in Iceland, but I just mean in the world. Now there's this thing where it's not about being an American comic. Because of Netflix and everyone watching things on TV, you see a lot of international comedy.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to be going towards English. Like, it used to be that people had their own style. Like, if you watch Jón Gnarr and you don't understand Icelandic, it doesn't seem the same as like, you know, Jerry Seinfeld or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
But then now, like watching you and seeing you in English and in Icelandic, it's kind of like stand-up has this international style to it now.
Yeah, and like the stuff that I do in English tends to be, you know, some of it tends to be local stuff that was conceived and written as a local jab at somebody that people here know.
Yeah.
But then you kind of just take a look at it and like, well, the gag is pretty universal. We'll just lift that from here. And, well, we'll just explain who this person is. We'll just drop the impression because that won't be relevant.
Yeah, yeah.
And even sometimes you can actually do the impression and just explain, well, this person talks like this.
They're like, I don't know him, but it's funny.
Yeah. I had this, when I was talking about Danish accents when I was in Edinburgh, I just threw in a little aside where I explained, like, you have to, like, completely collapse your throat. Just like, just talk like this. And you just pepper that in. Yeah. And you get a gag out of that. And then at the end of the show, people are like, that was a very good Danish accent you did. Like, have you heard one before? Never. Well, it probably was good then.
That is true. There's such a structure to why people laugh. Yeah. Like sometimes we'll have a crowd here of almost 100% tourists or something, or like 80%. And it's a full room and they'll laugh at local references because I'll forget that it's all tourists. Yeah. And then afterwards, they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. No. Like I'm making fun of the mall in Hafnarfjörður. And they're like, that sounds silly.
It sounded like you were enjoying roasting that mall. So we're never going to go there. But it sounded like a really strange mall. Yeah.
It delivered like a joke. So we decided to laugh.
Yeah. And it probably won't deliver as much if you film it and put it on the internet and people are like, what are you talking about, a mall in Hafnarfjörður?
Yeah. That is the magic of like live versus film. Yeah, like when it's filmed, you have to have everything in place for everyone to get it.
You have to have a structure that works for video. Like I did a couple of specials for the local TV station here. And I remember my club set usually consisted of throwing my weakest stuff in the beginning and just under promising and just kind of just playing out like this skit, this joke, and getting them kind of on board. Just staying relaxed and then build it. And then at the end, I would throw like these big bits with act outs.
And the big hitter is like the 90% every time it works.
Yeah. So when I did like my second special for the TV station, I was like, I'm going to take my closing bit and I'm going to open on that. Yeah. Just to, because somebody had told me, you know that people, if you take your time building the audience and people are watching it on TV, they're just gonna
turn it off.
They just want to get straight to the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like it has to be condensed and it just be ready. It's like what will be okay in a club is to have something that's like this is sweet stuff. It's a bit, it's like syrup, but like you just want rock candy. Immediately. Just condense it. Give it to me. Perfect.
Yeah. No one has patience anymore for the slow build and stand up on TV.
Yeah. You get like stats for like views that you got. This is very good. Only 50% of people switched off after half of it. You're like, is that good? That is great.
It's great.
There's unheard of attention span.
Oh yeah. On Facebook, it's like if you get anyone over 3 seconds, you're like, we did it.
People are just like, all right, Mr. 3 seconds, man.
Hello.
Long form storytelling.
You're a storytelling comedian now. That's great. This is it's funny because a lot of comedians who've watched this podcast, which is a few, there's at least 10 in North America. They always go like, how is there what is it like? Because they know how hard it is in Canada to start a kind of like stand-up scene and to work in it and join it. But with you, what I find interesting is that you have the pressures of like every type of comedian because you did like your show at Mid-Ísland and you guys did like bar shows as well. You're also a corporate comedian. And I think it's like, this is your job. You're a professional comedian. Yeah. So you have the pressure of like keeping everyone happy all the time.
Yeah. Well,
and it's like because it changes the way you do material.
It does.
If you watch a young guy here trying out comedy, they can kind of say something awful and to get away with it and move on with their day because they're not getting hired anywhere. But you have to kind of like, you always know that you have an audience.
Yeah. Well, I think like my general position for everything that I've written has always been pretty. I've always been a pretty clean dude. Yeah. That like. I may have like some sarcasm and irony, but like full on roasts and stuff like that. I've just never really known how to deliver that energy. Yeah. And I always, I just picked that style by default. Yeah. So it's quite broad. Yeah. So I haven't really had to worry about like, you have to you have to clean this up a bit for we have respectable people here.
Yeah, no sucks and fucks at the Christmas
exactly.
party.
Interestingly though, when I have performed in English and I have done something for like the BBC on like a radio thing or like a live performance, they will say like, well, just be aware that this is going on the air at 3 p.m, so swearing is blah blah blah, and you can't do this and that, and you're like, oh. And I realized I do drop the F word a lot. And I'm a squeaky clean comedian. It's just, you are so desensitized to the F word if the English language is your second language.
Exactly, So you hear kids saying it on the street
the
here.
kids are like, fucking väsen. And it doesn't have that much of a, how dare you say the F word. So I sometimes have to check myself to like not come across as like a really weird clean comedian who will throw in like a really offensive word.
It's all family material, but just fucking family material.
You know what it is, you got your kids, you're cooking, and the fucking barbecue doesn't work. And that doesn't work. It's clean material. Don't say fucking barbecue. What kind of a barbecue is that?
Yeah, but it's funny because like sometimes when they're like, oh, being a clean comedian is tough, but you are kind of just, everyone talks about how nice you are, which is something I think that helps you get as far as you've gotten, because you're one of the nicest people you ever meet.
Well,
Arnaud Daddy was just in a grocery store with you, and he said a stand fell down, and you got up and picked, like they just walked away, and they're like, whatever, someone will clean it up, and you just picked it up for everyone. You're just doing this, you're kind of just a good person. So you're able to be on top and not have anyone hate you.
Or I'm just really cunning and manipulative.
That's what I'm hoping.
If one person sees me picking this up, they will think, what a lovely gesture. He doesn't have to do that.
I hope that's true.
Yeah.
Like every time I meet you, I hope there's like this evil behind you. Yeah. Like, I've got this.
Ooh, I am so going to get some goodwill from this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but because you kind of like, when you went abroad and you went to Edinburgh, you do these fringe shows, and it kind of brings your theater show anywhere that you've gone, even Australia when you went over there for the comedy festival. What have you tried the like club scene?
Not really. I've performed in a couple of clubs in London. Yeah. But usually at the same time I'm in London to do like a theater show at the Soho Theatre. And I prefer theater shows. Club shows are nice though. The best club I've ever performed at in London is Top Secret Comedy Club. It is exploding, and the crowds are just like, wow, really up for it. And young people and people go there to have a good time, and they just have, it's a full room always. And they have 2 rooms. And I'd never heard of the place before. I only knew the Comedy Store, but that's like way more of an established institution. And getting on there is a very different process. Yeah. But this one is like more liquid.
Yeah, and you can know someone and they can kind of...
Yeah. And like, all kinds of people get to try, and big hitters go there to do stuff too. Yeah. So the little experience I have from the club thing was very enjoyable. Yeah. Backyard Comedy Club, another one, very nice. Yeah. But like most of the clubs I have performed in tend to be like a night at a bar, a room that is... This is the comedy night. Yeah. But like a purpose-built comedy club like this. This is like very special to have something that, oh, we do comedy. Yeah. We do comedy here.
That's what we do. Yeah. It's always, and karaoke.
So like, so this is like one of 5 clubs that I performed at, I think. Okay. That are like full-time clubs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the theater stuff, I prefer that. It's just...
well, everyone, like, I think if I could choose, I would choose selling out theaters. They're like, what would you like to do? I'm like, I'd probably like to sell out theaters.
Yeah, you can also you can goof around a bit more. I mean, in the club, it's a bit more pressure to sort of... Yeah. You think you're funny? Huh? Go and kill them, kid.
Exactly.
Or you're out.
Or like the first 2 minutes of every show, when you even here, the crowd's just like, is this going to be good or not?
Yeah. That tends to be a lot of the thing that is happening when you go on stage is people are just kind of, they don't know exactly that they're doing it, but they are checking out like, is he okay? Is he having a heart attack?
What's happening here?
Yeah, what's happening here?
Yeah, and that's also because it's such a small community here. When we get Icelanders in, a lot of times it's like someone's friend who are like, why has he been hanging out here so much? Yeah. What is he up to? Does he have a drug problem?
Yeah, and if you know people in the audience, you tend to be more paranoid because you're like, oh, this will have repercussions. Yeah. I have this great, there's a friend of mine, Swedish guy, Isak Jansson. He's been here a couple of times to perform. He has this great bit about like Swedish crowds. Yeah. How like everybody is like so supportive. Yeah. And he said he saw some comedian in Sweden do a gig and he just froze up and went like, and I went in there and I can't do this. And he said to the crowd, literally went like, you can do it. Come on, do it. And
we all got you.
Yeah. And he talked about how horrible it would be if like a pilot would suffer that kind of breakdown. Oh, we're flying in approximately I can't do this. Gets passengers like, you can do it. You can land this plane.
Oh, I wish the comedy scene was like that in Canada.
Yeah.
When I started, we had shows. Actually, I just got a message from my brother that one of the places that I first did like my longest set, it's been now closed down and is not fit for human occupation. Because it was a horrible, and they had strippers before we went on. So we went on and then strippers.
Yeah.
So it was just be guys in the front being like, get off stage. We want to see boobs. We hate you. We're going to beat the shit out of you if you don't get off stage right now. And we're like, okay, they're not going to like my soccer material. Being threatened. I had a guy throw a bottle at me and it hit my elbow. It didn't shatter, but it fell to the ground. I'm like, did you just bottle me? And he's like, I just think you're funny. I was like, what is going on?
I was being nice.
I was being nice.
In my world, this is the nicest thing I can do.
Don't you guys like it when people throw shit at you? It's like you're a rock star. I'm like, I don't think that's how it works.
That's not how it works. Well, if I didn't like you, I wouldn't have aimed at your elbow. I'll tell you that. This is the highest award.
Elbows are hard.
Elbows are hard.
That's so, yeah. That's got to, and I guess I'm also interested because you're a professional comedian in Iceland. And you kind of have like what a lot of people would like to be able to have, the stability with stuff. How is it performing and having all these gigs and then having like the family life all the time? Do you find it easy to balance?
Well, I owe a lot to my partner, who is very supportive and also helps me write a lot of the stuff. Mm-hmm. She has often to take care of the home more than I do. Yeah. We try to do it as equal as possible. It depends. If I'm doing a long run of shows, then it's going to be a rough couple of weeks at home. Yeah, but I think we managed to kind of balance it out. But it is tricky, definitely. And that's why I don't tour that much. Right. I tend to, if I perform, I tend to do it here, around this area. Yeah. And if I go abroad, we usually, if Edinburgh, they will come with me for half of it. Yeah, yeah. And we also get like some friends and relatives who come and visit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it can be a bit all consuming sometimes. But I think that like the main challenge of like balancing the work is just there's a certain level of paranoia you get when you are doing well. Yeah. And I'm trying to rest a little bit every year, like not just do every gig all the time. Right. Because I could keep myself very occupied, but the gigs are different. Like the show that I will write, especially for the year and sell tickets to, that is a big challenge to write the stuff. Right. And if I am doing a lot of stuff at like corporates or birthday parties, that is a very different gig altogether. That means you have to rely on stuff that you know, like club material. You will have to have stuff that is in your muscle memory. And you can sort of just randomly just make a set list on the spot of stuff that you just, I got this. I know. And
get people's attention and like, okay, this is the show.
Yeah, and if you do that for a few weeks only, if you just do what you're best at for a few weeks, you will completely stop writing. Right. And that's what I've always been struggling with, is that the flow of new material is very uneven. Right. And some comedians are very good at keeping it fresh. Yeah. But I have to watch out that I don't get stuck in a rut, because that leads to a really bad feeling of insecurity, which is like, oh man, I know this material so well, I will not be able to write anymore. Yeah. And you don't know if you can, like, how do you do? Because if you don't, like, if you're a comedian in London or New York or Toronto, you can do what you're doing and then go to these open mics and stuff to try new stuff. How do you incorporate testing material out? The way I've done it in the last couple of years is that I've just put on a handful of test shows, usually at the end of the year. Yeah. And they are fairly, like, the rules are pretty simple. Like, the prices are low. And it is what it is. And there's a lot of banter and audience interaction, which is not a strong suit of mine at all. I tend to be more of a guy who writes stuff, locks it down, and then delivers it verbatim again and again and again and again. Right. But these shows are interesting. They're a bit of a challenge for me, because I will have to have piss poor material and just back to the drawing board. Have a few goes at it. And I did it like 6 times this year. Over the space of 1 month, I had 6 test shows. And I did mostly the same material again and again. Yeah. and I filmed them, and I kind of watched them. I can't watch it for too long though, because you also just want to forget, like, oh, that didn't go well.
Yeah, exactly.
But then, interestingly enough, the stuff just gets a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then at some point, you have completely forgotten your fear, and you are just in editing mode. And then something is rewritten, and there was like a handful of material. There was probably 20 minutes of material that was born in that 1 month period that went from being really bad, like no segues, no purpose to any of the stuff, no act outs, very bland and wordy shit, just really struggling to I'm going somewhere with this,
listen to me,
and they wound up becoming like, oh, this nice little bit here was a nice little act out and a little nugget here, ooh, a callback, and when that gets going, when the craftsmanship of the writing gets going, that's when I'm very happy. I can also be very happy when I'm just on autopilot and just doing stuff I know, and when I go abroad, I tend to only do stuff that I know 100%, but just rearranged and translated. So there's a little bit of a novelty in it for me as well. Like, oh, I've never segued into this from this, and oh, I'm going to throw in a little explanation here. Who the fuck this celebrity from Iceland is? And so it's it's like writing, it's testing, it's editing, and sometimes finding old material that you've completely forgotten about and repurposing it, and just making it new, and exciting again. So it's like mergers and acquisitions.
do you ever get bored of like your autopilot stuff and then just try it differently one time?
Sometimes. That tends to happen if I've been on like a break for a couple of weeks. And then I go straight back to the grind. I will have forgotten a little bit the through line. And that will actually allow for some fun or improvisation. But then keep in mind, 99% of this is all in my head, and like the audience has no idea
they never have any
how
idea.
Obsessed we are with this I gotta work on that little segue a little bit more. Sometimes when you get paranoid on stage, you will say like, that was a pretty impromptu segue, and people are like, what is segue?
What are you talking about?
A bit heavy-handed callback, I know. What is callback? What are you
using
talking
technical
about?
terms?
It's like being a carpenter and just talking drill bits, you know. People are like, we don't care.
Like people will mention they'll mention stuff like that on stage when they get nervous, like the clock, or they can see something and the audience doesn't know what you're talking about.
Clock?
Yeah, just like the timer.
Do you have a timer? They don't know. I can see the light has been on. Like the guy at the bar has been flashing the light for 3 minutes. Is he a flasher?
What are you talking about?
What light?
Yeah, they don't realize that the only thing the audience knows is what you tell them. They don't have any idea about the behind the curtain.
I see the red lights on. Yeah, I know this used to be a champagne club, but this is just extra information. You don't have to put on the red light. I find it very funny how infused you can become in your head with it, and how big it is for you. Because you're kind of like you're just a stand-up enthusiast. You love stand-up and you want to do it. Is there any other? Because now I think Mid-Iceland isn't performing this year. No, this is like the first break we've had in 10 years.
And
we used to do like we always did the show in a pretty small room. And then we just added shows, and that's fun. But when you do like 5 a weekend every weekend for 4 months, and almost all of us have children, it gets a bit tired, you know. Like the second show would be like, can I go on first? I want to sneak home. So we have moved towards doing maybe fewer shows, but maybe in a bigger venue. And I think that's going to be interesting to do that again. We have been in like the university room with the big show. So at some point we'll do that. But Dóri was also going to be doing like a film, I think, a TV series. But then I think they canceled that and postponed it for a year. But yeah, Berkur is doing like his show as well. It's an interesting thing. But for me, I was always knackered having to do my New Year's show and then getting 3 days of break and then going again on the 4th of January.
Mid-Iceland.
But it is it is everything that I got from that show and from that group. That's how I learned stand-up.
It's a kind of it's a weird thing now. It's not happening this year because when I got here, it was the thing that happened. You knew January was happening when all of a sudden the Mid-Iceland ads came out, and you guys were the comedy group. And now you're kind of all doing kind of your own little projects on the side.
I think it's pretty good. I mean, we're gonna do stuff again, definitely. But maybe a bit differently. But also, it's like doing 15 minutes each and sharing a stage. Once you get a taste of doing a solo show, it becomes very different. And I think it was like a big step for all of us that try to do something in our own name.
Yeah.
Like Bergur is doing a show now in Borgarleikhúsið, which is like more of a lecture.
Yeah.
But when I went to Edinburgh like 3 years ago, I realized that everyone has a solo show. Like you have your 15 minutes, you also have your hour.
Yeah.
Everyone has
Yeah.
it. And you realize, well, we don't just have to do 15 minutes each.
Yeah.
And that also means that like the whole tempo that I had been writing and performing at in all of us is like very fast.
Yeah.
And you're also competing with everyone
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
So that is great, and it's great exercise. But it's not the only way to do it.
Yeah. That's
And
definitely
I am more drawn towards like solo shows now.
But like
As a viewer as well.
Yeah, because the solo shows, because you have this, because you've been doing these 15-minute things, and you have like a lot of laughs per minute, which is a technical term again that I always like to think about.
There are apps for it.
Yeah,
LPM.
laughs per minute. That's something that I've noticed. Just like when you go back to when I go back to Canada or the States, and you go to a comedy club, someone building up 45 minutes. It's 45 minutes of just like crushing.
Yeah.
These people who are doing it, and then when you go over to the UK, some of these solo shows
Very different.
Very different. It's like sometimes they'll talk for 5 minutes and there's no laughter, and I'm getting like, oh God, this must be horrible. I'm like feeling bad for them, but I'm like, maybe people just like what he's saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be constant like candy.
Candy. Exactly. They're like, no, there's a bit of omelette here.
Yeah.
No, and also they have this big tradition of like theater style criticism.
Right.
So you will read a review on your show, and I was very terrified to get a review of my show.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like, oh, this is greatest hits. This is club material. This is rewritten. I know how it's patched together.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't write this with I did not compose this with a theme at mind.
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
thought the critics are going to hate it. But then the reviews were very nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you had great reviews.
I realized that like, oh, well, probably reviews are just, I mean, there's a whole industry around that.
Yeah.
But if the show works, you're going to get a favorable review, unless
Yeah.
the critic really hates you and thinks that you're a piece of shit. And then I was asking around these people who were way more experienced than me with writing these hour shows. Like, so the theme, I thought your theme was very interesting. Like, did you conceive the show with that theme? And
Yeah.
they were like, God, no, it's 80% club material. And then I put a theme at the end, and
Yeah.
I rewrote a bit of it, and then I performed that for a month. But no, it's not conceived as a theme, and they rarely are.
Yeah. Because that one, I can't imagine that working for stand-up.
Yeah.
Like just being like, the theme is my father.
Yeah.
And then like writing an hour. That's not really how stand-up material comes to.
There's a great comedian called Deanne Smith from
Yeah.
Canada. She's been here.
Yeah.
And I saw her in Australia. She was at the same venue that I was at. She did the show before me. And the blurb about her show was like, Deanne confronts in this show the ultimate of all taboos, money, and blah, 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 blah. And then the opening act of that show was just her explaining that this blurb was just written like 8 months ago when I did not have a show. It took a very different turn, so there is no mention of money whatsoever in it. And people were like, wow, they were a bit blown away by that. Like,
Yeah.
So you just threw out the blurb and you didn't have nothing?
Yeah.
And then her show was excellent.
Yeah.
But that's so cool as well, that she just like, well, I just kind of did like this and that, and oh Jesus, that money theme. Nah, to hell with it.
But isn't that because of the internet and reviews, and that's kind of how these shows get out there, and that's how the industry works at the fringe and things like that. Stand-up is really not a content-based art form, like what you're saying. Like it's not something like you can piece together a theme if you like.
Yeah.
But most of it is getting this kind of like technical thing that works, and a couple things that like get laughs, and like that's your jokes. You're not trying to make like a content from the beginning.
Yeah, like the way I approach it surely is that I just float the stuff and see what works.
Yeah.
And then I kind of make my editing based on that.
Yeah.
So I'm often a bit surprised that like, okay, well, they went for that.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think that was the strongest. I actually preferred my heavily written 5-minute massive bit with comebacks and themes, and they kind of just like that, okay, or not that much.
Yeah.
But these couple of cheap tricks that I threw in there, and I was kind of embarrassed, they really did well. So maybe throw away the ambitious stuff and use that, and then make something. So that's what you're always doing. You're like, like kill your darlings.
Yeah.
You know? That is basically what stand-up is.
Yeah,
for
you
most
find out what you can actually deliver.
Yeah.
Because I know when I started, I had an idea, like, I want to be this type of comedian.
Yeah.
And then, I'm going to be like, da-da-da. And I really liked like alternative comedy and different things. And I was like, this is going to work. And then you go to try it and you're like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many comedians, when Jim Jeffries came out, how many comedians at open mics everywhere in the world showed up with leather jackets, like immediately after that HBO special, and we're just like, oh, I got a bunch of jokes about sluts, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, ugh.
Yeah, and also like in the 90s, man, most people who were trying to stand up for the first time, they would have like a black turtleneck and smoke on stage. Be like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, folks. I don't know. That kind of...
Yeah, the Bill Hicks
Bill
thing.
Hicks.
Yeah.
I mean,
you see that everywhere.
There's always somebody who's that good that people kind of start taking their cues from them.
Yeah. Because it is kind of... That is what people like about comedy. Yeah. Is it's like, you're like... Because if you're not the best looking person in the world, like really pretty people, I don't think they care about stand-up that much.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just like a gorgeous dude, you're not like, I don't have to be funny. I'm fucking gorgeous. Yeah. If you're like anywhere in the middle, from like low middle to high middle, you're kind of like, hey, if that works for being funny, that could make me a little bit more attractive. Yeah. I want to be like that.
Yeah, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah, it's like
he's buck ugly and kind of funny.
But people think he's funny and he probably gets laid, so I'm going to do that, and this will work out for me.
Yeah. But when I was a kid, the only stand-up I'd ever seen was Eddie Murphy, Delirious.
Yeah.
Didn't even see Raw for years and years.
Yeah.
And this is like when I was 12, and I just memorized a lot of it.
Yeah.
I always just memorized stuff. I had like a bunch of Mad magazines from the 60s that my uncle gave me. Yeah. And I was just reading jokes about like Spiro Agnew and Hubert Humphrey and like all Agnew, all this dated stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know, in Iceland, like completely Rolodex of useless information.
Oh yeah.
But like lifting maybe some comedic style from it.
Yeah.
And then The Simpsons. I just watched The Simpsons repeatedly and I could memorize a lot of it. And then Eddie Murphy, I remember I used to verbatim deliver a lot of his gags, and I had no idea who Luther Vandross was or people he was like doing impressions of, like Teddy Pendergrass. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great impression. I don't know who that is. It didn't matter.
Just like his energy.
This is what Family Guy basically does always.
Yeah.
You're like laughing at cutaway gags that refer to stuff you've never heard of.
Oh yeah, there was like a whole season where every cutaway gag was about like some famous country singer that no one knew who he was. Conway Twitty.
Yeah, never heard of him. But I got into it, and then at one point I think Peter goes like, "Oh, nice, Lois, you got the ethics of Benjamin Disraeli." And then they cut to Benjamin Disraeli, like, "You don't even know who I am." And I was like, "Ha! I have no idea." And I was like, "Oh, Prime Minister of Britain. I have no idea.
Right.
No idea." But it's just the confidence. But I remember that was the only stand-up comedian that I knew of, Eddie Murphy. And I thought, this is how you do stand-up. This is like very fast and very, very impression-based. A lot of impressions and a lot of storytelling. So maybe that affected me.
I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I noticed that's when I knew my friends had gotten old.
Yeah.
Is when they quit talking to me in TV references.
Yeah.
So like they'd just be like, "Oh man, we're going on vacation soon," and stuff like. I'm like, "What are you doing? We only talk in TV references.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me about your life? I don't care."
I got a handful of friends that came up with me who only talk to me through Simpsons references. That's just like, like it doesn't matter. Like, so what time are we meeting tonight? And I'll just immediately go, it's a secret. And they go, shut up. It never stops.
Yeah.
And you can have just like meaningful lives together, only referring to the Simpsons. Like my younger brother, he's completely obsessed with Homer when Bart wants a guitar.
Yeah.
And he's like, Marge says, "Oh, we should give him a guitar." And he's like, "No, but we already gave him a guitar." And he picks up like a toy guitar. And she goes, "No, I mean a real guitar. This is real." I was like, this is real. So like my brother will say, I think on average, "This is real," like 5 times a day, any given day.
Yeah, it's great.
This is real.
No, I realize, because that's kind of also with comics, because you meet like people here, and like my friends here. I don't know anything about them. I realize that through this podcast, and just because sometimes like a tragedy will happen in their life or a good thing, and I realized I didn't know they had kids, or were married or anything. Because when you
have children,
what? You're just the guy who laughs at my references.
Yeah.
What do I know about
that?
That
is the extinct of our relationship. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but. That is like, for me, it has always been like fun to just memorize stuff and recount it and reenact it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that I got to know, especially when I was younger, they would just say, you barely listened to what anyone said to you ever. You were just retelling stuff from movies. And that was fun.
Yeah.
Would have been nice to get a word in occasionally.
Yeah.
So I think as I got a little bit older, I learned that a little bit more to listen to people and be interested. And I I had to learn that a bit like some psychopath.
Fit in, Dexter. Fit in, Dexter.
Yes, be normal.
Yeah, that's got to be tough because you're Iceland's comedian. Like if I'm in a taxi and I say like, hey, I'm going to the comedy club, they're like, what comedy club? And I just always say it every taxi I'm in here so I can advertise this place.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, Ari Eldjárn. And I'm like, yeah, he comes sometimes, but mostly he sells out theaters and stuff. This is how it works. Do you find that when people come up to us after a show, any comedian here, and they're like, hey, and they want you to be funny, but you kind of like, if you're in a grocery store and someone meets you, everyone expects you to be the comedian all the time. And you're kind of on all the time too.
Yeah, I probably am, but I have not done that much TV recently.
Yeah.
And I was always kind of nervous about doing TV because watching yourself on TV is very strange. Also, you do not know what people are experiencing at home.
Yeah.
And you get very insecure and paranoid.
Oh, yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, it is. But it also, you reap the benefits when you hit.
Yeah.
And I've done stuff on TV that's gone well. I've also done a lot of stuff that just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I remember when I would do something on TV that got noticed a bit, that's when you realize for like maybe a few weeks afterwards, like, oh, that is what people react to. Like when they see you and they've just seen you on TV.
Yeah.
So like there was a week very early on in my career when I did an impression of Bubbi Mortens, the singer. And we had like these guys, Utti and Sveppi, they had me phone Bubbi's manager from Bubbi's mobile phone with Bubbi on my side. And then I just did his impression and I told him we had to cancel a gig. And his manager goes like, we're not canceling. And I was like, my voice is terrible. Yeah. And this became huge.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like, it went everywhere, like virally on internet and also was on TV.
Yeah.
And the week after that is the only time that I really experienced like what it is to be somebody who people really want to talk to. And I would go like to a bar. A man walked into the bar, saw me, lifted me up. He abducted me and he just walked away with me from Dublin near the bar. And I was like, he's going to kill me. Yeah. And he took me into an alleyway, put me down. Never a good thing to have happen to you.
No.
And then he went like, I have to tell you something. I also do an impression of Bubbi Mortens. And then I had to stand there and go like, that's a very good impression.
That's great, sir.
Yeah. And he thought it was just normal. Like I was there with 10 people. Just took me and helped me. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So, and then I went to another bar later that evening and somebody was there who had obviously seen me on TV and he was very drunk and he just stalked me the entire evening. I went like, I hate you. I hate you. I hate you so much. I was like, why? Because you saw me on TV? I hate you so much. Like, wow, this is so extreme.
Yeah.
So like just doing telly once.
Yeah. I hate you.
Yeah, it was like a couple of weeks of getting like really strong reactions like, what is the man on TV?
Yeah.
And then now I'm not that much on TV. So people might recognize me, but there's no urgency to go like, hey, I got a joke for you. Hey.
Okay.
So like when you hang out with somebody who is on television, you see that like people are really if you've just recently been on television.
Would you like more attention? Or are you a person who likes attention on stage and then you like to be on your own?
No, I love attention. I think
all the time.
I think most people do.
Yeah.
Of course I don't do everything to get noticed.
Right.
I tend to be quite sort of selective about what I do. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if people want to come and talk to me, I very much enjoy it. If people are complimenting me. Yeah. Also, if people are coming to give me some harsh feedback, I have no patience for it.
Oh, weird. Weird. We are the same that way.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm just like, wow, I don't like talking to people.
I think like a level of the comedy skill also comes from something old, which is like deep-rooted fear of being rejected, which means that you will go to great lengths to do something which is very funny, and you will master that a little bit, and then you can have your ace in the hole if you're feeling a bit insecure about yourself. So I think that like there's this weird thing of like we really could use with the feedback. But I can only take so much feedback. If I get really harsh criticism, that takes a long time for me to get over it, because I will just go into full-blown attack mode. Like, well, what the fuck does he know?
Yeah, fuck him.
It's bullshit. They don't know.
He's a postman. Fuck him.
But then if you reach a balance, you can like, you can pick something from that and that.
Yeah.
But like some of the reviews that you read in Edinburgh, they're quite harsh. Yeah. And I mean, the only way to deal with them is just to go like, what a cunt. What a
fuck them.
That's the only way to, oh man, he's got such a bias, man. Wow, this is ridiculous bullshit.
So if criticism, you respond, what about just when there's anything else in life? Like how, like if something is hard in life, like so you're going through something with your family or anything like that, how does that translate to? Do you find it that you can escape through performing?
Yeah.
Or do you shut down?
No, that you can definitely escape through performing. And if you're going through some trauma or crisis and you have some gigs, it can help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can sometimes be difficult also to go on stage knowing that somebody died recently or something. You can maybe have that in your head, but it depends. I mean, I think certain stuff would warrant you stopping working, but for many other situations, it's probably good to get the
But how do you feel like about it? Because I can understand that you can stop. Do you like, does it block off when you go on stage? Do you get?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Like I have back pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's been pretty bad for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Mainly from like not exercising ever and holding my 1-year-old improperly and like just bending over a lot when I'm picking up stuff.
Right.
And I will have maybe bad back pain, but for the 20 minutes you're on stage, you will forget about it completely because you are just... Yeah, it's a strange thing.
Yeah, I always found that if it's something really bad, like relationship problems or a family tragedy or anything like that, on stage, I just like the compensating I do on stage makes it so I'm good. Yeah. Whereas if I'm really happy and things are really going my way, that's when I fuck up.
Yeah, kind of same here. Like you don't have much to escape from.
Yeah.
I also like escape. All of this is escape for me. And when stand-up becomes a real job and I really have to write new material, that is always when I find myself escaping the most. Yeah. So I had this show 2 years ago, this New Year show, and it was coming up in 2 months and it had gone on sale. And of course, because I had sold out a couple of shows, you start to panic, like, well, they're going to find out, man. They're going to know this is all bullshit. I haven't written anything. There's no theme about money in my show. You know, exactly. All that stuff. Yeah. And my wife went to, like, what is it called? Góði hirðirinn, the Good Shepherd. Yeah. The Goodwill store. Yeah. And she found a Teddy Ruxpin.
Oh, nice.
Like the old Teddy Ruxpin with the animatronics. And it was an Icelandic release with an Icelandic cassette.
Oh, that's great.
And this is something that both of us loved as children. And I always wanted one of them when I was 6. And she bought it and brought it home and it didn't work. Yeah. It like just didn't, the cassette player didn't work. Yeah. So I had 2 options. I could either wait to fix that Teddy Ruxpin until after I'd written my show and performed that show 10 times. Right. Or I could not write my show and just focus completely on Teddy Ruxpin. And of course, I chose to do that. Yeah. So deadline approaching, first shows are very near. Yeah. I'm just knee deep here with I had my brother come to help me because I don't know electronics. We like completely disassembled it and found some maniac's video on YouTube. Like, so this is how you fix the cassette player from Teddy Ruxpin. You have to buy lithium grease on eBay. Here's the link. And I bought all of that shit. And my wife was like, hey, why don't you write some material? I was like, yeah, but if Teddy Ruxpin can't speak or sing, how can I? And I've done this every year. I found something to obsess about. Yeah. So there's always a level of procrastination. I had a bit about it in the new show. Yeah. How I failed my exams when I was 16 in the Reykjavik gymnasium. Menntaskólann in Reykjavik. Right. I was supposed to be studying for the Christmas exams, but all I did was just practice scratching vinyl. That's all I did. So I just flunked, scratched myself to flunkness. And then there's a whole callback in the show, and then I end up wrapping up the show by actually scratching. Yeah. So that was fun to do. That's great. Yeah, like throw in something and then pull it out again. Do you find that, because do you ever do any sort of other types of writing? Like, I don't know, because like your father's a famous poet. Yeah. And do you do any other, like? Well, apart from the odd limerick here and there, I haven't. There once was a hooker from Peru. Once was a man from Nantucket. Yeah. No, I haven't written much poetry, but I would very much like to try to write some short stories. Yeah. Maybe a novel at some point, just to dabble in it. Mm-hmm. I've written sketches, of course. Yeah. So yeah. The what's it called? The Donald Duck as a Danish. Yep. That's awesome. That was one of the first, when I first met you, that's the first thing I saw before I met you. Yeah, that is like, that was a special sketch. That was awesome. We wrote that together. Me and Dodi wrote most of it. Yeah. Like, we had been working on a theme before, which was that like an Icelandic film would get remade in Denmark as a Dogma film. Yeah, Dogma, that's right. And it was supposed to be a film that Dodi's parents had made in the 80s called Stella í Orlofi, which is a classic comedy gem from Iceland. It got like 100,000 people in the theaters. This is like 1/3 of the country paid to get in to see this film. In the 80s, when tickets were worth like 250%.
And there wasn't even paved roads yet.
Yeah, exactly. so that was what I was trying to write. And then at some point, I remember me and Dode had been joking when we went to Copenhagen. Like, I told Dode, I always thought Donald Duck was Danish. Because we always got Donald Duck from Denmark.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we got it in Icelandic, they still printed them in Denmark. And on the back of the Donald Duck comics, there was always like, win a trip to Copenhagen. I was like, yeah, he's Danish. And then I realized years later, he's American. and he's also like a hawk. Like he did like propaganda movies against like Hitler and Hirohito. So Dode came up with this concept of like, if they were Danish, like where would they live? Like Andreas would probably live in Amager. And Joachim, he would be in Frederiksberg, a posh area. Goofy would be in Christiania. No, straight up, he's in Christiania. He's a pothead. He's possibly a dealer. So this was a bit that we'd done like a year before. And we just kind of remembered it. And then we just wrote that sketch. Screaming at each other in fake Danish. Like, fuck dig din fuck strysersvin, man. I call him a strysersvin, which means like, you fucking pig. It's like a derogatory term for police. And the Danes who saw the sketch were like, oh my God, you said stryser? That's like a phrase from the 60s. Nobody says stryser anymore. so we just seen that in a film, which was made by Kim Larsen. And that film is like really dated. Stryser.
So you just went for it.
This is like if Icelandic people say that something is like skyslecht, which is like what the hippies said, and nobody else. So that sketch was very much fun to do. And we spent like a whole day shooting it, and there's a party sequence in it where I do cocaine. That's one of the few. It's one of the few improvised things, which we thought was quite funny. And that was super fun. Powdered sugar, really hard to do that scene, and we had to do it again and again and again. Had so much sugar, and after we shot that party scene, everyone just felt like we had actually been in a druggy crime party, and like we all just like felt really dirty smoking indoors. These herbal cigarettes for like cameras. And they stink.
Oh yeah, they're awful.
Yeah, they're horrible. But yeah, that sketch did not feel at the time when we made it like it was going to be funny at all. It was so dark.
It was awesome. That's what. I thought it was. Because I just started watching Dogma films. I think like months before that, and then that. Like, this is way too funny.
Yeah, there were like some real enthusiasts who were pointing out, this is technically not a Dogma film because you're using external audio sources. Like, yeah, we know. This is also not a real movie. It's a fake trailer. It's a satire. Well, I think you kind of used too much of a good camera for that.
And so when you write this sort of stuff, do you get the same level of like is a reason with stand-up that you know that once you go on stage, you're going to get this immediate feedback?
Yeah, I mean, the procrastination does not get that much out of hand with stand-up because you always have, you can go on stage very regularly. And when you do, even though it's a paid gig, in your mind, it can still be a work in progress. And you can keep it like that forever. I find I struggle to film my stuff. That's when I get really, that's when I really, that's where I need to fix, not being like, this is not the best performance, I did it better 2 weeks ago. Like, nobody knows that. And this is all that you're going to leave.
But you hate what filming is so hard.
It is. It's different.
As soon as you're being filmed, everything that you think's wrong with you, that's all you see.
That's all you see. And you compare yourself to the best show you've ever done. And you have this ideal standard of a perfect show. You think that, it's weird. My big finishing line didn't get that much of a laugh tonight. Well, I hope they can juice it in the mix. Well,
and it doesn't feel like it, when you're there on stage and you get this response, you feel this thing that
it feels ridiculous.
It doesn't get translated to film at all.
And you get lighted differently. It's not pitch black in the audience because they have to see the audience as well. So you get really strange. But I think it's just you need practice. That's all.
But you can tell comedians that are used to being filmed as opposed to used to doing like live shows.
Yeah, I think that like what I tend to do when I'm doing live shows, that I tend to speed up a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I get into it. It's like, for me, it's a big kick, No, wait, stop laughing. Wait, there's more. And then like big act outs and sound effects.
Oh, yeah. I remember when we did Joke Thieves together in the basement of Bar 11. And you had 5 minutes, and then we each had to do our version of the other person's material. Such a good gig. You had so many jokes. Like, it was so many things in that 5 minutes. And I was like, Jesus, he's fast.
Yeah, and you roasted me on all of them.
Oh, you got me immediately right off the bat. Like, every joke I did, you're just like, yeah, he's just going to go,
I can't remember a single thing I said about you, but I remember that you pointed out how ridiculous it was for me to talk about how futile it was to learn Latin, a language that nobody speaks. Like this is very good coming from a man who speaks Icelandic, a world language. I thought it was really good.
Oh, because there's like 1.8 million people that speak Latin.
Yeah. Who are you to criticize that?
But Latin's technically dead.
Yeah,
It's
technically.
It's not evolving like Icelandic.
No,
With all the slang and all the like drugs kids take nowadays.
They don't have any word for Snapchat.
No.
But on that note, when I have filmed myself and I've seen what it looks like when I'm talking fast, that's when I realized, oh, when you film it, that actually looks very different from how it feels.
Yeah.
And plays in the audience. That looks like somebody who's terrified. That looks like somebody has got my family at gunpoint behind. They're like, you have to finish in under 50 minutes. Wait, stop laughing! Stop laughing! It's funny!
I have more to say!
So I think if you're doing a filmed version of yourself, it has to be a different version, a little bit. You have to be. It's a bit more about this, just getting a feel for you and letting the camera see you a little bit.
I've seen LA comedians who you can tell kind of grew up in that scene. Yeah. And they always have been kind of, they're also like pretty. And they know that they want to be filmed, and they always feel like they're mugging. Yeah. It doesn't feel like they're trying to get the crowd going. Yeah. Who's the guy that people like? He was on that show, and he's always really dark. Well, Jeselnik.
Anthony Jeselnik. Good looking guy.
Constant. I think the material, he just chose shocking material because he wanted to be pouting through most of his jokes. Because he just wanted to show up. Look how good looking I am. Yeah. That's why dead baby.
And he is.
He is.
I just saw his new one on Netflix, and the thing that's nice about him is that you're just confident watching him.
Yeah, because he's confident.
He's confident. He's so calm.
Yeah.
You're like, well, there's going to be a lot of bad stuff said. Also, he sometimes plays up how dangerous the stuff is. Yeah. And he really hikes up the drama around it. And then he's completely cool.
Yeah, it's something I feel like I could never do that.
I sometimes if I'm doing something and there's something going on in the crowd, I will do some reference to something that's off or incorporate something, not a hackle, but something that's happening. Yeah. Mini roast, if you will. A lot of times I will maybe frame it as like, this is one of the more memorable gigs that I have done. Yeah. And people always like that when they're like, oh, well, we're going off script here. Yeah, That's nice.
Oh, people love it.
People love it. And if you do it, not in a hacky way. Yeah. You're like, oh, you boys, you're the best people I've ever seen. Try the steak. If you're not.
That was wonderful. You're a great crowd.
You're a great crowd. Yeah.
It's the most beautiful crowd I've ever had.
Remember that guy in Annie Hall? The place looks wonderful from here. Seeing you there with a smile on your face.
We have it here because when you get heckled here, some comedians, they've only ever heard what's called cliched responses. So hey, this ain't TV. I can hear you. Yeah. I'm like, oh, God damn it. Just say something about his face or something.
I didn't get heckled once for 5.5 years. And when it happened, I was so shocked that I completely overreacted. It was like a really drunk person who screamed at me. I was doing an impression of a Dane. Yeah. And I did it in English with a Danish accent. That's how I usually do it. Because I'm too lazy to learn all the Danish words. Yeah. And I finished one half of the setup, and then somebody screamed you should do it in Danish. And I was like, what? Do it in Danish. And I just went do something in Danish. Okay, I'll say something in Danish. Hold din kæft. I said just shut your mouth. Yeah. And I remember it was not a particularly harsh word, but it just came across as so aggressive because I hadn't experienced it for such a long time.
Oh my God, you guys are here.
And the crowd was like, ooh, it was more of a big deal than if I actually said something Jeselnik style, because I was just it just sounded like I was so angry that I got interrupted.
Do not
So I realized, oh my God, if you get heckled, don't get nervous. You have to go with it, and you have to be nice as well.
That's the thing. Everyone thinks you can just be an asshole.
No, you can't just be an asshole.
You have to be so charming to be an asshole.
You have to get them on your side as well. Yeah. And that is the trick. If you want to be
they had a show here on New Year's? No, Halloween, where Thorhadler, winner of the Funniest Man in Iceland 2007, he asked the audience if they should kick out the front row because they're being rude, and they thought it was part of the show. Yeah. And then as soon as they realized they were actually kicking them out, the audience just turned and was like, don't kick them out. Yeah. This is supposed to be fun. It's a comedy show. Yeah. And Thorhadler got so nervous, he's just like, The next comedian is going to say.
Wow, I had that happen like one time at the last Edinburgh run. There was a couple who sat in the front. Immediately I saw something was off about them, and I think they were drugged out of their mind.
Yeah.
Because they were just like French kissing during like the opening remarks. They were just not listening to anything, and then they were just talking. And then after 10 minutes, I had to stop the show. I said, "Sorry guys, I don't think you're enjoying this.
Yeah.
Maybe like should you leave? It's okay if you leave." And the crowd was like, "Yeah, go leave." And they were all for kicking them out.
Yeah.
Because they were just ruining the show.
Yeah.
And I didn't even incite the audience. The audience was just so pissed off at them, and they were like, "Go, just go."
Yeah.
So the guy got so pissed off, and he was like, "Yeah, your jokes are shite anyway, man." And they're like, "Boo!" And they're like, "It's all right." And then afterwards, I was like, "Wow, that was hard. Thanks for taking care of that for me. I would have had no idea how to kick that guy out."
Yeah.
And like my tack was not in that moment. Like he had to go and open.
So you're just on your own with the audience.
On my own. Like the guy could have pulled a knife, and I've been like, "Well, this is on me." And,
well, this is what I get for coming to Scotland.
It is quite yeah. So great to be here.
But I never understood people like that who like take ecstasy and go to a stand-up show.
Yeah.
Or like do blow so they can't even laugh because they're like the whole time. It's like, why are you wasting your drugs on my show?
I think it was a friend of mine called Skulk. He's South African. I think he had a bit about like having a really coked guy watching your show.
Yeah.
And be like, funny.
Yep, that's good.
Good. Funny. Yeah. And you're like, oh, the fuck away. Funny.
I always just get, when I see it, even here, if I see it, I always just get mad. I'm like, what a waste of drugs.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
You should be down, like, go somewhere where this is enjoyable. Just like, being uncomfortable the whole time.
I'm going to take something that makes me completely self-absorbed and speak really fast all the time and go to a setting where I have to listen to someone else who's completely self-absorbed and shut up. Not being able to say anything.
This will be great.
Yeah, this will be great. This is a completely wrong circumstance.
Well, this has been wonderful. I hope you were willing to do this podcast again.
Yes.
Oh, this has been great.
Great stuff. And great club. I'm really excited to coming again to trying the new material in English.
Yeah, you have a friend coming soon on the 18th. Callie, she's coming to perform here.
Yeah.
On the side. And then, are you going to stop in anytime?
I'm going to try to get like Loiso from South Africa to come here, and Francesco
in February.
Yeah.
They
are really fun too. They're going to be here with me in Tjarnabíó. Going to put that on sale soon. So plugging and promoting, people.
Yeah, he's got shows coming up. Make sure you check it out.
Plugging and mugging.
Hey, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was great. So this has been the Secret Cellar Green Room podcast, Not in the Green Room, and my guest has been Ari Eldjárn. Just to let you know, if you've watched this all the way through, that Mondays we have the Magic Viking, Tuesday is My Voices Have Tourette's, Wednesdays is our open mic, Thursdays is the Thursday Night Comedy Jam with Art Nadathi, Friday the Not So Secret Friday Show with Gisli Johan, Saturday the Saturday Night Comedy Showcase hosted by me, and Sunday is the Sunday Silly Shenanigans, which is a variety open mic type show. So there's shows every night of the week at Iceland's first and only stand-up comedy club. Thank you guys. See you later. Yeah, it's good.
So much fun.